David Walton was only 20 years old, yet life had decided to make him grow up far too early. For the third consecutive day, he woke up before sunrise, gathered himself, and stepped into the ruthless streets of New York City, searching for work and for hope. In a small, modest apartment, where life breathed quietly, lived Mary Johnson. Every morning followed the same routine. Mary Johnson left for college, books clutched to her chest, dreams shining in her eyes. And David Walton, empty pockets, a heavy heart, and countless questions in his eyes, disappeared into the city crowds. But it hadn't always been like this. David Walton was the only son of Michael Walton, one of New York City's wealthiest businessmen. 3 major construction companies, countless properties, and wealth enough for generations. David had never known shortage. Money flowed through his life like water, endless, effortless. In college, he became a symbol of extravagance. Rich or poor, everyone was equal in his eyes. If he ate, his friends ate. Nights drowned in music, nightclubs, lights, and thousands of dollars vanished in a single evening. His mother, Hillary Walton, warned him again and again, "David, your father is not happy with this lifestyle. Please control yourself." But youth, freedom, and wealth, when they come together, advice sounds meaningless. Then, one day, the decision was made. Michael Walton sat his son down, his voice firm, his eyes heavy with disappointment. "Go. Live in this cruel world, in this heartless city. Then you will understand how hard it is to earn the thousands of dollars you waste every day. From today onward, earn your own money and spend your own money." And just like that, David Walton walked out of his father's mansion. The very next day, he went to college. There, he met Catherine, the girl who loved the son of a rich man. David told her everything, being thrown out, empty pockets, an uncertain future. Catherine listened and then fell silent. After a pause, she spoke coldly. "Look, David, I can't help you in this situation." That was it. In that moment, David understood the difference between love and interest. He sat down on a bench, tears in his eyes, and one painful question in his heart. Do people only love money, not humans? That's when Mary Johnson approached him. Mary, who had silently loved David for a long time, but never dared to say it. She couldn't ignore the pain on his face. "David, what's wrong?" "You can share it with me. I'm your friend, too." David tried to avoid it, but Mary's sincerity broke his walls. He told her everything. Mary smiled. A smile that gives strength to broken hearts. "Is that all?" "So what? From today, you'll live with me. Whatever I eat, you'll eat. As I study, you'll study alongside me. What's the problem in that?" David immediately refused. "No, Mary, your parents live in the village. They rented this small apartment for you. I can't become a burden on you." Tears filled Mary's eyes, but her voice remained strong. "David, have you forgotten? You paid my college fees once. You covered my food bills many times. If today is the day to return that kindness, why are you stopping me?" She spoke softly, yet firmly. "After college today, you're coming with me. From today onward, you are not alone." They were silent on their way back from college. Few words, too many thoughts, a small apartment, 2 rooms, a tiny world holding 2 uncertain lives. In one room lived Mary Johnson, clean, simple, filled with books and quiet dreams. In the other room there was an old wooden bed, where David Walton spent the first night of his new life. Dinner was simple, but cooked by Mary's hands. David ate little and thought a lot. Every bite felt heavy, as if he was eating someone else's right. The night drowned in silence. Morning came. Mary woke up first. She made breakfast for both of them, eggs, toast, and tea. David sat at the table with a heavy heart, less sleep in his eyes, more worry. Smiling softly, Mary said, "Come on, get ready for college." David lowered his gaze. "No, Mary, I won't go to college today." Mary froze. "What are you saying? You have to go. Finishing your studies is important." David's voice hardened. "I've decided. From today, I'll look for work. I'll earn money. I don't want to be a burden on anyone anymore." Mary tried to convince him again and again, but David didn't move. Finally, he said, "You go to college. I'll leave with you, but to look for a job." They walked out together. New York's streets were as loud as ever, but inside David there was a strange silence. Mary went to college, and David outside shops, in front of offices, on unfamiliar streets, Everywhere. He searched for fate. One day passed, then another, empty-handed. Today was the third day. That morning, Mary left for college again. David stepped out, touching the few $100s left in his pocket. One question echoed in his heart. What should I do? Walking aimlessly, he stopped in front of a massive building. Glass walls, security guards, and above the entrance, in golden letters, Stock Exchange. David paused. This was the world he had only heard about, never seen. He walked inside. The scene was unreal. Huge screens with numbers racing nonstop, people talking fast, some laughing, some panicking. David spoke to a few people. They told him, here company shares are bought and sold. If you buy the right stock at the right time, you can make money. Hope lit up his eyes. He thought, maybe this is my way. He pulled out his few $100s and bought shares of a well-known company. The first day, the numbers went up. His heart jumped. It felt like destiny was smiling at him. But destiny doesn't always stay the same. A few days later, the market crashed. The news changed. The numbers started falling, and those few $100s slowly sank. David stared at the screen with empty eyes. His hands trembled. The dream was broken. Silently, he walked out. Now he had no money, no support, no pride. The next day he went out again to find work. This time, fate showed a little mercy. At a service station, where cars were washed and cleaned, a man stopped him. Will you work? David answered without thinking, yes. From that day on, David Walton started washing cars. Water, soap, mud, hard labor. They became his new companions. His hands cracked, his clothes stayed soaked, but his heart felt peaceful. Because today, he was eating from his own sweat. And from here, the real life of David Walton began. David Walton's job at the service station gave his life a new color. It wasn't bright or glamorous, but it was real. Every morning before sunrise, he stepped out of the small apartment. A cheap bag in his hand, exhaustion on his face, but stubborn determination in his eyes. I won't turn back now. Washing cars was not easy work. Cold water often numbed his hands. In the heat, sweat ran into his eyes. His clothes were usually soaked, and the skin on his hands began to peel and crack. Yet every evening, when the owner placed a few dollars into his palm, David felt as if he had won a battle. He handed the money straight to Mary Johnson. Here, he said simply, this is what I earned this week. Mary tried to refuse at first, but there was something firm and serious in David's eyes that made her stop. A few days later, one evening, as they sat at the dinner table, David finally spoke. Mary, there's something I want to say. She looked up, surprised. Yes? David spoke slowly but clearly. From now on, we'll split the rent, half and half, and we'll share the food expenses too. Mary responded immediately. I'm not asking you for anything. Things are fine the way they are. David shook his head. No, we're living in the same home. It's only right that we share responsibility. I'm not a guest anymore. Mary fell silent. Then, with a faint smile, she said, All right, if that's what you want. From that day on, David began giving Mary part of his weekly earnings and quietly saving the rest. Days passed. Weeks turned into months. Finally, he had saved $1,000. That night he couldn't sleep. Only one building kept circling in his mind, the stock exchange. The next day, he stood once again in front of the same glass building. His heart was pounding. This time, I won't make an emotional decision, he told himself. He walked inside. This time, he wasn't completely new. He looked at charts. He listened to conversations. He tried to understand the terminology. One man said, This company is safe. Good for long-term investment. David nodded and invested his entire $1,000. The first day, everything was fine. The second day, Bubba still fine. On the third day, when he saw green numbers on the screen, his heart lifted. He returned home smiling. Mary noticed immediately. Something special today? She asked. David smiled softly. Just feeling hopeful. But the market does not run on hope. On the fourth day, a news alert appeared. On the fifth day, the stock began to fall. David checked the screen every hour. His chest grew heavy. Then the moment came. He opened his account and saw it. The value had dropped to almost half. He sat down in the chair. His breathing slowed. Within a few days, the $1,000 were almost gone. This time, There were no tears in his eyes, only a deep, heavy silence. That evening he returned home. Mary understood the moment she saw his face. "The money?" she asked quietly. David lowered his head. "It's gone." After a few moments of silence, Mary said, "It's okay. You earned it with hard work. That's what matters most." For the first time, David realized something important. Even failure becomes lighter when it's shared with someone. The next day, he was back at the service station. Cars, water, soap, hard work. This time, his hands were stronger and his heart wiser. He had learned the truth. The dream of getting rich quickly often brings a man back to zero. But hard work never betrays you. And with that hard work, David Walton was slowly becoming a new man. That day was not like any other day. The sun stood directly overhead, burning everything beneath it. Cars were lined up at the service station, waiting their turn. Water splashed against metal. Soap turned into thick white foam. And rough hands kept moving, hands whose skin had begun to peel from endless work. David Walton was washing a car, just like he did every single day. Then, on the road beside the station, a black luxury car passed by. Slowly, it began to slow down. The driver eased his foot off the accelerator because the man sitting in the back seat had suddenly frozen. His eyes were locked onto the service station. "Stop the car," he said, his voice barely steady. The brakes screeched softly. Mr. Michael Walton stared, his breath caught in his chest. Is that my son?" As he stepped out of the car, his legs trembled. Each step toward the service station felt heavier than the last. And then he saw him. David Walton, his only son, the boy who once wore the finest clothes, now standing there in a soaked uniform, washing cars under the burning sun. "David," his voice shook. David turned around. For a moment, he couldn't believe his eyes. "Dad?" They stood there in silence, between a father and a son. Thousands of words hung in the air, unsaid, heavy, painful. Mr. Walton stepped forward and held David's hands. "What have you done to yourself? Look at your hands. Your skin is torn. Your clothes are wet. This life, this is not for you." David gently pulled his hands away. "It's okay, Dad," he said calmly. "I'm working." Mr. Walton's eyes filled with tears. "Everything I did was for you. I wasn't cruel. I wanted you to understand the world. I didn't want the world to use you." He took a deep breath. "And now, I see you working honestly. I know you've learned your lesson. That's why I'm here." He placed a hand on David's shoulder. "Come back home. Leave all this behind. You are my only son." David lifted his eyes. There was no pride in them. No anger, no stubbornness. Only peace. "No, Dad, I can't come with you." Mr. Walton was stunned. "Why? This life is not meant for you." David pointed toward the car he had just finished washing, shining under the sunlight. "Look at that car. It's clean. It's shining. If you want, I can wash your car too." Tears rolled down Mr. Walton's face. "Why won't you listen to me?" "I'm your father," David replied softly with respect. "Dad, you are a rich man. Your time is valuable. And I'm a poor boy, a car washer. My time is valuable too." He smiled faintly. "If you don't mind, please let me do my work." Mr. Walton had no words left. He stood there for a moment, then turned back silently and got into his car. The car drove away, but his tears did not stop. That evening, David returned to his small apartment, exhausted. Mary Johnson was in the kitchen, preparing dinner. She placed a plate in front of him. "You're very quiet today," she said. "What happened?" David looked at the plate, but didn't feel hungry. "I'm not hungry." Mary looked at him with concern. "Did something happen?" David spoke slowly. "Today, my father came, Mr. Walton." Mary stopped. "What did he say?" David told her everything. The service station, the conversation, the offer to return home. She listened silently. "And what did you do?" she asked. David took a deep breath. "I said no." Mary spoke gently. "That wasn't an easy decision." David nodded. "But it was my decision. I don't want to live just as someone's son anymore. I want to live as a human being." Silence filled the room. But this silence was not weakness. It was the silence of maturity. On the other side of the city, Mr. Mikel Walton stepped quietly into his vast, luxurious home. Everything was the same. Expensive, bright, yet tonight it felt lifeless. Hilary Walton was sitting on the couch, waiting. The moment she saw his face, she knew something was terribly wrong. What happened? Did you meet David? Her voice trembled with anxiety. Mikhail took off his coat and exhaled deeply. There was weight in his voice. Yes, I met my son today. Hillary straightened in shock. Where? How is he? Michel lowered his eyes. He's working at a service station. A soaked uniform, clothes drenched in water. And his hands. His voice broke. The skin on his hands was torn, Hillary, and his face. It had lost all color. Hillary's hands began to shake. My son? In that condition? I begged him to come home, Mikhail said softly. But he refused. Tears filled Hillary's eyes, anger rising with pain. This is because of you, Michel. You threw our son out! You pushed him into this life. She stood up abruptly. I will not leave my child like this. I'm bringing him back right now. Michel was startled. It's night, Hillary. Go in the morning. She looked at him fiercely. When a mother's heart is burning, there is no day or night. She rushed outside and called the driver. Start the car immediately and get the address of the flat where my son is living. Moments later, the car sped through dark streets. Hillary stared out the window, but the real image was inside her eyes. Her son, washing cars in wet clothes. Finally, the car stopped in front of a small apartment. Ma'am, this is the place, the driver said. Her heart pounded as she stepped out. She knocked. After a moment, the door opened. Mary Johnson stood there, a beautiful woman, but with helplessness on her face and tears in her eyes. Hillary spoke with a choked voice. Does David Walton live here? Mary asked cautiously. May I ask who you are? Hillary took a deep breath. I'm David Walton's mother. I've been searching for him for months. Please tell me the truth. Does he live here with you? Mary looked at her for a few seconds, then slowly nodded. Yes, he lives here. Please, come in. The flat was small, simple furniture, and silence. That room is David's. Mary pointed. He's sleeping inside. The other room is mine. Hillary Walton opened the door to David Walton's room. Slowly, very slowly, her hands trembling, the room was dimly lit. A simple wooden bed, an old mattress, as worn out as the life David was living now. After a long day of hard labor, he was fast asleep. His breathing was uneven. Exhaustion was written all over his face. On that bed lay Hillary's flesh and blood. The piece of her heart, her only son. She stopped for a moment. A flood of memories rushed through her mind. The same child she once held in her arms to put to sleep. The child she stayed awake for all night. The child whose forehead she kissed, to begin every morning. Tears rolled down her cheeks. Hillary, whispering, breaking, my son, my precious boy, my heart, my soul. She stepped closer and gently placed her hand on David's head. That touch only a mother can give. David stirred. Still half asleep, he struggled to understand what he was seeing. Then his eyes opened. It was his mother. Hillary kissed his forehead, his cheeks, her tears refusing to stop. Hillary crying, my son, you're living like this here. And your mother. How is she supposed to live without you? David sat up. His eyes were moist. David softly, it's not like that, Mom. I think of you every day. When I leave for work in the morning, I remember you. At lunchtime, and in the evening when I come back. Brief pause. David, when Mary serves me food, I tell her stories about you. Hillary held his face in her hands. Hillary, pleading, then why don't you come back home? If you miss your mother so much, why are you staying here? You don't deserve this life. You are the son of a billionaire. This place, these conditions, they're not meant for you. You should be with me. Her voice cracked. Hillary, that mansion has become a prison for me. Without you, my heart feels empty. You are my only son, my life. David replied calmly. David, Mom, everything you're saying is true. But believe me, I'm happy here. My life has changed. The way I live has changed. He looked at his hands. David, I work, I earn money. I take care of my own expenses. Isn't that what Dad always wanted? Today, I'm finally doing that. Hillary said anxiously. Hillary, get up right now. Come with me. Get in the car. Let's go home. David shook his head. David, if I wanted to go home, I would have gone today. When Dad came to my workplace, I'm fine here, Mom. I don't want to go. At the door, Mary Johnson stood silently, listening to everything. Her eyes filled with tears. Hillary turned to her. Hillary, what about you? You explain it to him. He doesn't listen to me. David quickly said, David, Mom, her name is Mary Johnson. She's very kind. She's taken great care of me. Hillary, crying, said, Hillary, Mary, please make him understand. Without me, he can't see what he's doing. He's my life. I can't live without him. Mary's tears began to fall. Mary, emotionally, Auntie, I understand your pain. But David is no longer the same person he used to be. This decision, he made it from his heart. The discussion continued for over an hour, but David's decision did not change. Finally, Hillary was exhausted. Hillary, soft, defeated, all right, I'll come to see you every day. Morning, evening, whenever you want. She took some money from her purse, maybe $10. Hillary, take this. You'll need it tomorrow. David immediately refused. David, Mom, this is Mr. Walton's money, and I don't want to take even a single dollar from him. Despite the arguments, David didn't give in. At last, Hillary hugged him tightly as if it were the last time. Hillary, through tears, all right, as you wish. But remember this, your mother will always be with you. With tears in her eyes, she walked out, sat in her car, and drove back home. Through the dark, silent streets, the next morning, everything looked normal. But somewhere inside, something had already broken. Miriam Johnson prepared breakfast in silence. David took a few bites, as if his body was there. But his heart was somewhere else. Miriam left for college. David went to the service station. All day long, as he washed cars under the burning sun, only one image kept replaying in his mind, his mother's tears and the unbearable silence of the night. By evening, he returned to the apartment, exhausted, empty. Miriam placed dinner in front of him. Miriam, gentle, eat something. David avoided her eyes. David, low voice, I don't feel like it. I think I'll just sleep. Miriam looked at him carefully. Miriam, you haven't eaten all day. You barely touched breakfast, too. Even a little, please. David, almost whispering, not today? I can't. A few seconds of silence passed. Then Miriam spoke again, hesitant. Miriam, if you don't mind, can I sit in your room for a while? My heart feels restless, too. David looked up, surprised. Then softly, David, why wouldn't you sit? If your room feels lonely, come sit with me. They walked into the room together. David sat at the edge of the bed. Miriam sat beside him. They talked about mother, about father, about memories, and about the emptiness that money can never fill. David's voice began to shake. Tears rolled down his face. Miriam said nothing. She gently wiped his tears, ran her fingers through his hair, not like a lover, but like a mother offering comfort. David finally broke. Somewhere between breaths and sobs, his head rested in Miriam's lap. He didn't even realize when it happened. The room held only two sounds, their breathing and their racing hearts. They had lived in the same apartment for years. But that night, something changed. The line of friendship was left far behind. The night passed. When morning came, the silence screamed. Guilt, shame, regret. Miriam sat up suddenly. The color had drained from her face. Without saying a word, she walked into her room, closed the door, changed her clothes, and stood in front of the mirror. Tears filled her eyes. In the other room, David sat frozen, head buried in his hands. David, broken whisper, what have we done? That night, no words were spoken. No decisions were made. That morning felt different, even before anyone realized why. Miriam Johnson prepared breakfast the way she always did. Orange juice, toasted bread, a few simple things placed neatly on the table. She stood there for a moment longer than usual, her hands resting on the edge, as if she wanted to say something important. But silence won. She picked up her bag and left for college without looking back. She didn't call David's name. He was still in the bathroom. When David came out, freshly dressed, towel on his shoulder, his steps slowed the moment he saw the table. Breakfast was there, untouched, exactly as Miriam had left it. Everything was the same except her. In that instant, he understood. She hadn't eaten. He didn't sit either. He didn't take a bite. He quietly picked up his bag and left for work. All day long he washed cars, scrubbed doors, wiped glass, his hands busy, his mind somewhere else. Every splash of water echoed the words he hadn't said. That evening, Miriam returned home earlier than usual. As soon as she opened the door, her eyes went straight to the table. Breakfast. Still. There. Unchanged. David hadn't eaten either. Her chest tightened. Guilt mixed with something heavier. A little later, David came home. They were under the same roof, yet it felt like two separate worlds. Miriam cooked dinner, set the table, said nothing. David walked straight into his room. Time passed. The food grew cold. Finally, her voice broke the silence, soft, careful. "David, dinner is ready. It's getting cold." "Come eat." He came out slowly, fatigue on his face, regret in his eyes. He sat down and spoke before fear stopped him. "Miriam, about what happened last night. I'm sorry. I never meant to hurt you. I lost control of my emotions." She didn't answer right away. She listened, eyes lowered. Then quietly she said, "Just eat your food." They ate in silence, avoiding each other's gaze. Fewer words, louder thoughts. Days passed like that, quiet, distant, heavy. Then slowly, almost without noticing, words returned. Small conversations, soft smiles, laughter finding its way back to the table. One evening the laughter grew careless. Miriam, teasing, splashed a glass of water on David. He jumped back, shocked, clothes soaked. "Oh, so that's how it is." He laughed. "Now I deserve revenge." He stepped forward, laughing too. Jokes, laughter, unawareness. Miriam slipped. David reached out to catch her, but lost his balance too. For a few seconds time stopped. No words, just breathing, just feelings quietly claiming their space. And then the night passed. When everything settled, they adjusted their clothes without a word. No arguments, no explanations. They walked back to their separate rooms in silence. That night no one spoke. But everything had already been said. Mary Johnson's final semester had started, but something inside her was breaking. She was the same Mary who once laughed easily, who smiled at small things. Yet now silence had taken over her life. Books stayed open, but her eyes couldn't read a single word. Even inside the lecture hall, her body was present, but her mind was somewhere else, because she was hiding a truth that scared her every second. She was pregnant. That single word echoed inside her head, like a hammer striking her heart again and again. One evening, Mary returned to the apartment. The silence inside felt heavier than usual. David wasn't home yet. She placed her bag aside, sat on the couch, and without thinking, rested both hands on her stomach. Tears rolled down her cheeks. "What will happen now?" she whispered. "My final semester? My exams? My father? My village? My future?" The door opened. David walked in, clothes covered in dust, hands rough from work, eyes tired but honest. "Mary?" he called softly. She wiped her tears quickly. But David had already understood. "What's wrong?" he asked, stepping closer. Mary lowered her head. For a long moment, there was nothing but silence. Then slowly, she took David's hand and placed it on her stomach. "There's something here." David froze. "What do you mean?" His voice trembled. Mary closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and said the words that changed everything. "David, I'm going to be a mother. This is your child." Time stopped. David stepped back and sat down heavily. His mind exploded with fear. Poverty, endless work, failed investments, leaving college, his broken relationship with his father. And now, this. "We're not ready," he whispered. "This can't be happening." Mary's eyes filled with tears. "I know. That's why I'm scared. This is my final semester. After this, I have to go back to my village. What will my father say? What will people say?" David held his head tightly. "We can't run," he said quietly. "We have to face this." That night, neither of them slept. No food, no rest, only fear, questions, and silence. After hours, David finally spoke. "I won't run away," he said firmly. "This is my child. I am his father." Mary looked at him, shocked. "But you're already struggling, David." "I was struggling," he replied softly. "But I won't stay weak. I'll work harder. I'll become better. I'll change everything." "And if you fail?" Mary asked, barely audible. David looked straight into her eyes. "Then I'll fail trying, not hiding." From that day, David broke himself with work. Early mornings at the service station, washing cars, scrubbing dirt, hands burning, skin cracking. But he never stopped. He took extra shifts, saved every dollar, accepted every tip. Mary gave him her small savings. "This is for our future," she said. Slowly, very slowly, the money added up. This time David didn't gamble. He studied. He learned. He waited. When he walked back into the stock exchange, his hands didn't shake. He invested wisely. Stable companies, calculated risks. Days passed. Markets rose and fell. David stayed calm. Then one day, profit appeared on the screen. Not huge, but real. He rushed home. "Look," his voice cracked. "We didn't drown. We survived." Mary smiled through tears. "This isn't just money," she said. "This is hope." Months passed. Mary completed her final semester. The exams were hard, but she never gave up. One evening she said, "I passed." David pulled her into a tight embrace. "We'll handle everything," he said. "Our child, our life, together." That night, as the city lights sparkled through the window, David sat quietly, dreaming. The road wasn't easy, but he was no longer alone. Mary was beside him, and inside her, a new life was waiting. Life had forced David to grow up early, but he didn't complain, because that same life gave him a purpose. And sometimes a purpose is greater than success itself. Miriam Jansen's final semester of college had begun, yet an unfamiliar restlessness had settled deep inside her heart. The same Miriam who once laughed freely, who smiled at the smallest things, had grown unusually quiet. Her books lay open, but her eyes never truly followed the words. Even while sitting in the lecture hall, her mind drifted far away. There wasn't just one reason, there were many. But the biggest reason was a truth she kept buried deep within her heart. Pregnancy. The word echoed in her mind like a hammer striking over and over. One evening, when she returned from college, the apartment felt unusually silent. David hadn't come back from work yet. Miriam placed her bag aside, sat on the sofa, and instinctively rested both hands on her belly. Tears streamed down her face. "What will happen now?" she whispered to herself. "Final semester. Exams? Father? Village. Everything." The door lock clicked. David walked in. His clothes were covered in the usual dust of hard work, his face serious and exhausted as always. "Miriam?" he called out. She quickly wiped her tears, but David had already understood. "What's wrong?" he asked, stepping closer. Miriam lowered her head. Silence filled the room for a few moments. Then, gently, she took David's hand and placed it on her belly. "There's something here." At first, David didn't understand. Then it hit him like lightning. "What do you mean?" His voice trembled. Miriam closed her eyes and said softly, "David, I'm going to be a mother. This is your child." Time seemed to freeze in the room. David stepped back and sat down on a chair. 1,000 thoughts crashed into his mind at once. Poverty, work, failed investments, dropping out of college, distance from his father. And now this. "No, this can't be happening," he murmured. "We're not ready for this, Miriam." Tears filled Miriam's eyes. "I know, that's why I'm scared. This is my final semester. After this, I'll have to go back to the village. What will my father say? What will society say?" David held his head in his hands. "We can't run from this, Miriam. We'll have to make a decision." The night of decisions. That night became the longest night of their lives. No one ate. No one slept. There were only conversations, questions, and long silences. Finally, David spoke. "I won't run away from my responsibility. This is my child. I am his father." Miriam looked at him in surprise. "But you're struggling yourself, David." "I was struggling," he said quietly. "I won't be anymore. I have to do something big, something that can change all our lives." Miriam asked softly, "And if we fail?" David looked into her eyes and replied, "Even then, trying is better than giving up." Arranging the money. In the following weeks, David pushed himself to the limit. He went to the service station early every morning, washing cars until the skin on his hands cracked even more, but he never stopped. In the evenings, he asked for extra shifts. Within days, he began regularly cleaning a wealthy customer's car, who started giving him extra tips. Miriam also handed over her small savings to him. "This is for our future," she said. Slowly, little by little, David managed to gather a reasonable amount of money. Returning to the stock exchange. This time, David didn't act on emotions. He stayed up late at night studying, watching videos, understanding reports. He learned where emotional investing leads to loss and where patience brings reward. When he entered the stock exchange building this time, his steps didn't shake. He invested in a mid-level company that didn't promise quick profits but offered stability. He also made a small investment in a technology company, but this time he avoided excessive greed. Days passed. The market rose and fell, but David didn't panic. After a few months, for the first time, he saw profit in his account. Not much, but real. He came home and placed the screen in front of Miriam. "Look." His voice trembled. "We didn't sink. We're winning." Miriam smiled gently. "This isn't just money, David. This is hope." A new path in life. Miriam completed her final semester. The exams were difficult, but she didn't lose courage. One day, returning from college, she told David, "I passed." David held her tightly. "We'll manage everything," he said. "The baby, life, all of it." At night, as city lights shimmered through the apartment window, David sat on his bed dreaming of the future. He knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but he was no longer alone. Miriam was with him, and so was a tiny life yet to come. Life had forced him to grow up early, but he no longer complained, because that very life had given him a purpose, and that purpose was his true success.